everyone. Welcome to Going Solo with Cece, and you're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and we are on goingsolonetwork.com, and I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. You know, we have got so much going on, and I hope that you're doing well because of the virus. We know that people are getting out more, doing a little bit more. So I hope that you're being safe and wearing your mask because you're important to us. So we just wanted to share that with you. I want to thank you so much for joining us each and every week. Let's do our homework. You guys know you can reach me at goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. I love to get all of your messages. So just send me a quick email. Let me know if you like the show, if you don't like the show, what you'd like to listen to, because we would love to bring that to you. So let's move on with our topic tonight, because we have a great topic. Our topic tonight is the empowerment of power and knowing the difference. Do you know the difference? And that's what our guest is going to share with us tonight. We have a wonderful lady. Let's bring her forward here. Welcome to the show, Melody. This is Melody Brooke, MALPC LMFT. She's a therapist specializing in helping people develop real connection in their relationships. She's also the author of a wonderful book called Oh Wow Healing Guide. Oh wow, this changes everything. And most certainly, I think it does. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that. Well, welcome, Melody.
Thank you.
It's nice having you here. So tell us a little bit about your background, your journey of becoming a therapist, really helping, connecting with individuals, specializing in relationship building. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, convoluted path, as often they are. I was recovering from the loss of my son through sudden infant death in 1987. And at that time, I knew that I needed to do something to get out of my house and to cope with the things that were happening. So a friend of mine suggested that I consider getting a master's degree. And I was going through all kinds of different programs, ideas about what I could do. And it was like, one day I was standing in the bathroom and it was like God tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're supposed to be a counselor, remember?" And I was like, oh, yeah. So I walked out of the bathroom and I said, I'm going to be a counselor. It was just like clear as day that that's what I was supposed to do.
It's amazing when we have those aha moments, in our lives. And a lot of times it's, it's terrible to say, but tragedy sometimes takes us there and really brings us to the point where we have to really evaluate our lives, our core being, really our values of what is important to us. And it's from those low moments in our lives, those challenges that we face, that seems to really create something so beautiful when we get past that pain and that hurt. So, I want to thank you for sharing that with us, because I know that is not an easy situation to go through. But what a wonderful thing you're doing now, wonderful work you're doing, helping others to be able to connect a little bit better. That's our whole platform is about connection. It's about building relationships and helping those who are struggling to be able to come to the other side and really kind of know what they want. So tell us a little bit about this subject tonight that we're going to talk about, the empowerment of power and knowing the difference. What does that mean to you?
Well, to me, it's about understanding the difference between empowerment and power over other people. Because a lot of times when people hear that word power, what they perceive of is a powerful person who has power over someone else. And what empowerment is power over yourself, right? It's being able to find the power within yourself to have a different life, to make choices, and to take ownership of your life in a new way. And especially if we've experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of turmoil, a lot of loss in our life, it's hard for us to feel empowered. We get triggered into an old brain. I don't know if you know what I mean by old brain, but we have a 3-part brain that is made up. This is a model of your brain. This is the brain stem, where our fight, flight, freeze, automatic reflex lives, that reptilian brain. Then we have our midbrain, which is the emotional centers. And then we have our new brain, which came last, which we think of as our brain, which is all that gray matter, right? And when we have something traumatic happen, or even a sense that maybe something possibly good could go wrong, this new part of our brain, where our logical thought is, our language skills are, our sense of identity and history is all up here. And what happens is this old brain is designed to take over, and we lose connection with our higher brain function, and we respond in ways that are not necessarily in our best interest in a social life. We react first as a victim or a potential victim, which means we feel afraid, we feel overwhelmed, we feel despairing, horrible feelings that nobody likes to feel. And we have to then feel like, okay, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to get out of this? Because we feel so out of control and powerless that we flip into rescue mode or self-protect mode. And in rescue mode, we please, we placate, we try to take care of everyone else. We try to make everybody else happy. It's an attempt to get a sense of power over the situation by using that manipulative, lying behavior, right? Or we flip into that self-protect mode in an attempt to get power over through dominance, through aggression, through physical force, even using words or physical violence to try to coerce things to change, using physical force or verbal power over a situation. And all of that is just keeps us caught in a place where we actually continue to trigger those feelings of helplessness. We continue to trigger those feelings of unhappiness. We never get to sense connection, because it's really all about our own survival, right? It's not really about connection. It's really, how do I, because that part of the brain, its job is to protect the organism, to take care of you. And so that's what you're focused on. You're not focused on your connection. You're not focused on how the other person is feeling. You're just in that moment focused on your own welfare and getting through whatever conflict, whatever trauma, whatever sense of threat that you might be experiencing in that moment.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. We used to often say it's like you're living in your story, right. You're being a victim, and so trying to get through to the other side of that is
and these are roles that we take on. It's not that we're programmed through biology and culture to respond in these ways, and we do have a choice about it, but we don't know that we do. It feels it's so instinctively happens, so automatically happens that it feels like it's how we have to act. It doesn't feel like there's an option. But once you recognize it, once you identify it, once you start to know when your old brain is lying to you about your choices and about how you can respond, you can start going, yeah, okay, I hear you. I'm not doing that. And you make a different choice. Mm-hmm. That's true empowerment, because then you're at choice instead of at reaction.
Yes, totally. I totally... we see this all the time with those that are struggling a great deal. And they have that, as you said, that little voice in their head that's telling them things that totally are not reality, And so how do we get to that flip of that? I know that's probably a long process.
It is. And I can describe it very simply, but it's not so simple to do. Mm-hmm. Because the opposite of being stuck in that victim place is to be able to take ownership. Mm-hmm. Ownership of what belongs to you, not what belongs to anybody else. Because when we're caught in that other that what I call a cycle of egocentrism, we're caught in a place where we feel like we're responsible for other people's feelings. We're responsible for what other people do. We're responsible for how other people react to us, none of which we have any power over, right? We don't. So we can't own what doesn't belong to us. We also have to own our own feelings. We have to own our own value, our importance in the world and in our relationships. So taking ownership is the first step. The second piece, which is opposite of being in the rescuer role, is to be able to take a position of respect, so that you're being respectful enough to speak your truth with no need to control, protect, or harm anyone else. And then the opposite of being in the self-protect mode is to be able to have empathy, to drop your boundaries a little bit, to have empathy for the other person and also for yourself in that process, so that you're being compassionate not only for the other person, but for yourself. That's the shift.
Those are very hard steps. Those are very hard steps to take. Because I know that, as we're traveling through, and I do a lot with divorce recovery or relationship loss, and there's a session that you go through, a part that you go through that you most certainly, you kind of fall the victim, you feel like you're the victim a little bit. But I often say that you won't really heal from your situation or your divorce or relationship loss until you truly understand the part you played in the demise.
Absolutely. And that's true of whether you go through a divorce or whether you're in a marriage and trying to work it out. Because 90% of the time when couples come into therapy, they each think it's the other person's fault. Right? And so the shift that happens is when they can recognize that they are contributing as much to what's happening as their partner is. And that's always true across the board. It's like, even though, in my own divorces, it would be very easy for me to look back and go, well, he did this, he did that, he did this. But then I'm a victim and I don't take ownership of, wow, what were the choices that I made? What was it that I did? What was it that I allowed? And what was it that I didn't speak up about? What did I not own my truth about? What did I not respect my partner about? What did I not have enough compassion for them about? That's the shift. So that when a person, and I do coach couples sometimes who come to the place of having to decide to divorce. And part of that process is getting them to a place where they can separate with respect, with empathy, and taking ownership for their own part in what's happened, so that they don't have to have a contentious divorce, where they can still be cooperative if they have children involved, for example, but to move toward a future where they're not stuck in that victim place.
Yes, you're absolutely right with that, because when you get stuck in there, nothing happens. It's just a muckety muck place, and it's not
And honestly, it is the worst place that takes you. If you don't feel like you can rescue your way out, if you don't feel like you can self-protect your way out, and you are stuck in that victim place, that your old brain will spiral you down into a place to where your thoughts will go, well, just kill yourself then. And that's how people end up suicidal, because they're so trapped in that victim place that they cannot see a way out. And that's a challenge. But once you recognize that that's what your brain is telling you and that it's not true, then you can start to shift it.
Right. And then also, what I see sometimes is the bitterness that those have, because I guess, like you said, they're not feeling the empathy for themselves or for others or for anything. And they just become bitter and very tainted towards the opposite sex.
And again, that's about blame, which really, blame gets that whole cycle of egocentrism going, right? It's what keeps it going, because the more you feed that tiger, the bigger it gets, because you can come up with more and more reasons to blame that person, but that doesn't help you shift or learn anything. How can you learn anything if everything is somebody else's fault? How can you learn how to shift and take management of your own life without owning what it is that your part of it has been? Otherwise, you're just like being blown around by life, and you're not empowered. You're stuck, and you're in a helpless, hopeless place where you end up medicating with alcohol or food or sex or whatever it is that you use, because you're in so much pain. And yet you never can get satisfaction. You can never feel whole.
And then the worst thing is is that when you take that, you're in this place and you think you're moving forward and you move into another relationship.
Where you're doing
And
the
then
exact
you
same
go
thing
through
because you're
like
still
that.
stuck in that cycle and you don't realize it. You know, one of the big things that I see happening with couples, probably more so than anything else, is a couple where both people tend to stay stuck in the rescuer position, which means they're sweeping everything under the rug. They're pretending everything's fine. They're lying, they're placating, and they're creating this huge gap between each other. And they stop even knowing who they are, let alone who their partner is. And then something will happen. That's often where affairs will happen. Or they just, decide to get divorced and they say, oh, well, we just drifted apart. Well, the reason that you drifted apart is that you were never respectful enough to own your own truth and speak it to your partner and be empathetic enough with them to see that they're hurting too, right? That's the gift of understanding how this works, is you can start to see what you can change in how you are relating to each other. And if there's a history of that kind of distancing, it's not just one person doing it. It's both people have bought into that and learning how to speak up. What's interesting too is that because the old brain is so dominant, when you start to do something different, it feels terrifying. Even though it's obviously not. I mean, you're not going to die because you speak your truth to your partner, but on a body level, our brain is going, no, this isn't safe. This is scary. I can't go there. I can't do that. And it can really create a lot of anxiety. So it's part of the process is being willing to feel that discomfort of doing something different, which a lot of people they would rather not stretch themselves that way. And I get it. It's not easy. It's not a path that everyone can jump into, but it is the only way forward to have any chance of having a happy, fulfilled life.
Now, do you think that some of this is triggered? If you haven't done this work and you're not to this point, to where you are really whole to be able to move forward in maybe another partner or whatever. Do you think there are triggers that happen as you're dating? Because so often I hear a lot of people say, oh, I can't find the right person or this and that. And granted, I know that, as you're older, the dating pool gets smaller and smaller. Yes. However, there are more and more people dating now, more and more single people. But there again, I think the matches that we're struggling with, and I think even myself has experienced it, from time to time, is that you meet someone, there's something triggered, something happening, and then you realize that you've got a little bit more healing to do.
Yeah. And the healing work is ongoing, right? And especially if we have childhood trauma on top of adult trauma, it can make it very, very difficult and challenging to trust again, right? So for a lot of us, especially if we've been in a relationship where there was betrayal, it's very difficult to allow ourselves to warm and open to another person when our heart's been trampled on. And at the same time, that's a victim place, right? So we have to be willing to take that choice, make a choice to do something different. And a lot of times we also have these, as you talk about triggers, unfortunately, we can get triggered into connecting with the wrong person because that feels familiar. And when we have been traumatized, say, it's why a lot of times women who were beat as children end up marrying men who beat them. Women who saw their parents have infidelity end up in a relationship where they experience infidelity, because we're drawn to those experiences. It's an unconscious repetition. It's a repetition compulsion if we have trauma that's untreated. It's the way our brains work is to complete an experience. We want to complete the experience. And we still have these questions out from when we were a kid. It's like, why would that happen? Why did that happen? Why did that happen? And so we go and we try to find out why that happened by connecting with someone who's like, oh, that person can help me figure out the answer to that question. We don't consciously have awareness of that, but that's what we do unless we've done our own work and allowed ourselves to heal and been empathetic with ourselves and learned to separate out that old brain from our more compassionate selves.
Yeah, so right. You're absolutely right. One thing you did say, and I want to go over it again, is that I think that that process that we go through with life and with ourselves, the growing process, I think it's just continuous. And it's something that I think the brighter side is that people nowadays are starting to understand is that, as you grow and new experiences come into your life, triggers happen in your life, things happen that the more self-development you can do, the better it will be for you. And I love the idea that we connect with awesome therapists like yourself. Mm-hmm. And those that we've had on the show that can not only can we connect with them, they inspire us, but they also encourage us to go to the depths of our being, which is very, very important. So I want to thank you for all that you've said tonight. Here we have a comment here, addictive personalities. Can you make a comment on addictive personality?
Yeah, a person who is stuck in an addictive cycle is basically doing their darndest to avoid the feelings of being a victim. They have some wound, and most of the time, as we now know through a lot of research, that's around connection. That's because as a child, we experienced a disconnect from the people in our lives who cared for us, whether it's through abuse or neglect or just abandonment. But we're continually feeling that wound, and we try to medicate that wound. We try to rescue ourselves out of that pain that we're having, and we end up hurting ourselves in that process and keeping the cycle going by that, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's all the same thing, right? We get addicted to bad relationships. We get addicted to a certain way of feeling, and it feels like that's where we need to be, and we have to be courageous enough to allow ourselves to recognize that we can take ownership of our lives by allowing ourselves to feel the stuff that we're trying so hard not to feel, and helping that part of us that was wounded, because we do. And this is part of the gift of what I work with my clients on, which is to recognize that a lot of that aloneness and that wounding came from a child part of us, right? Mm-hmm. And we are no longer that child. And because we're no longer that child, we actually have capacities and wisdom and experience and guidance that we can offer our own child self. We can be there for that child part of ourselves in a way that nobody else can ever. And we have to take on that. And there is a grieving that goes with that, right? Because mm-hmm. we have to grieve the fact that we did not get that. And we will never get that, because once you're an adult, there's no going back. You can't make up for what you didn't get. And we try to marry into it. We try to marry somebody who's going to fix that wound, who's going to make us feel better about ourselves, who's going to make us feel whole and loved. But no one else can do that for us. We are the only ones that can do that for us. That is the empowerment of what I'm talking about, because then you're truly empowered, because nobody can take that away from you.
It's a lot. And I hope that people will not only listen to this today live, but will also go back and re-listen to it, because I think that a lot of these shows that we have, and this one I think too in particular, is our minds can only grasp so much at one time, and we may not be ready to absorb whatever it is that we're listening to. But to go back and re-listen to some of the shows, the rebroadcasts and stuff, it's just amazing. I think the help that it gives individuals. So I want to encourage all of you out there that if you missed any part of this, please make sure you get it, because I think this is very valuable. And I want to thank you so much for sharing that with us today. What I'd like to do now is let's just take a quick break. And when we take the break, we'll come back. And I want to talk about your book. I want to talk about why you wrote the book. It's a very unique title. And so let's talk a little bit about that when we come back. So we're going to show this quick advertisement that we have here. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this really quickly. And we're just going to
Okay, I want those earrings.
Yeah, great. I tell you what, this is, they'll just put the information up there. That's Questline Jewelers. You can reach them at 877-860-0826. They're there on 8431 Lee Highway, Fairfax, Virginia. And you can go to their website, questjewelers.com. They're wonderful. They sponsor not only our station, but also our Veterans Corner. And so we want to appreciate them for that. So let's get on back to our show. You guys, if you're picking us up right now, you're listening to Going Solo with Cece on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are a radio, TV, and podcast station, all internet-based. We are the #1 singles talk station, and so we're really proud of that. All our shows, you can find them on goingsolоmedia.com. We're live here on Facebook and on YouTube. And again, my email, if you'd like to reach me, it's just goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. We've got a couple websites there. Go to goingsolonetwork.com. You'll see everything that we're doing. And we're doing a lot of new things. So I want to tell you, because of the COVID, it's making us reevaluate everything that we're doing and how we're connecting. So you're going to find some surprises along the way. So today we have with us a wonderful host. I'm a guest, and you can take over if you want anytime. But our guest today is Melody Brooke, and she's a therapist. She specializes in helping people develop real connections in their relationships. And she's also an author of this awesome book. It's called Oh Wow, Healing Guide. Oh Wow, this changes everything. This changes everything. You know, it's a very unique name. So tell us a little bit about, number one, why did you want to write this book?
Well, So actually, there's two books there. There's the Oh Wow, This Changes Everything is one book, and the Healing Guide is another. But that's awesome. I love that you put them both out there. So the original book, the Oh Wow, This Changes Everything book, happened. It was actually my second book. My first one is called Cycles of the Heart: The Way Out of Egocentrism of Everyday Life. So you can see why I changed the title. So how I came up with this was I had been working for about 10 years, almost solely with people who were dealing with dissociative identity disorder, which is formerly known as multiple personality disorder. So what I learned about the way their systems work is that they have inside of them that victim, rescuer, self-protector, that all of the characters in their head take on one of those roles. So once I understood that, and I was at the same time working with couples, I was like, this very same thing is happening between the couples as is happening inside my clients who have these systems. And so I started seeing the system playing out both internally and externally. And as I sat down one day with one of my clients and was kind of going through the way the cycle of egocentrism works. And so he asked me, so what's the opposite of that? And so working with that idea for a long time, I finally realized what the opposite of that was. It took me several iterations to get there and understanding what that cycle of compassion looks like. And it's a roadmap for how to get out of the misery of the cycle of egocentrism. And so I was writing, and you can hear my first title. I was like, okay, that's the title I came up with. So I have no idea what to title it. But when I was talking to a friend of mine who does marketing, and I said, I don't know, I'm struggling with how to name my second version of the book, because the first version was very academic. So I decided to make one that was more easy to digest, that had more stories in it. And so she said, well, what do people say when they read it? And I said, well, they just say, oh, wow, this changes everything. And she goes, there's your title.
Yeah, I definitely think that it would, because awareness is truly the key. And so when you start putting it together, then you could kind of see the path that you're going on. You could see what's happening with regards to, yes, to the individual. So yeah, I get it.
And then people have since that have read it, have said, well, it's like 10 years of therapy in a book. Mm-hmm. It's like, awesome. And then I realized, of course, that, there are a lot of people, probably most people, that could benefit from who may not be able to reach out and do individual therapy with me, who want to take it to a deeper level and really allow themselves to move through that from that old cycle to the new cycle. And that's what the Oh Wow Healing Guide does. It helps pull them through that so that you can reconnect with the empowered self that you really are.
Yeah. Oh, wow. No, yeah, I think this book is definitely needed. I truly do, because I think the self-awareness is empowerment. When you start being not only aware of yourself, how you're feeling, what's going on with you, also your reaction to other people. And then you can start better understanding them, because, like I know often we refer to in dating like the 5 languages of love. So if you don't really understand your partner, right, how are you going to be able to relate? And so there's a lot of different things here. So yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think if we're going to heal, we really need to focus on the different areas of our personality, on how we react to things, the deeper stuff.
Yeah, and understanding that these things that we have felt the compulsion to do are not required. They really are not. It's really not necessary to fight to, get your point across to someone. It's really not necessary to sweep all your feelings under the rug. It's really not necessary for you to suppress yourself and be stuck in that victim place. But yet that's what our brain, automatically, and I'm not saying that we don't need that part of our brain, because by the way, we do. That part of our brain's really important if we're in a war zone or in some kind of violent event. We will need that part of our brain to take over, as it does instantaneously in a fraction of a second, to help us stay alive. The problem is that our brain doesn't know the difference between an actual physical threat and a perceived psychological, emotional, relational threat. It reacts to it exactly the same.
That's amazing. Totally amazing. Well, I think these books, okay, I did not realize that.
That's right.
For some reason, I was thinking that when I took the information, I thought they were all the same. So we have 2 books here, and I'm going to bring it up just so that we have it. So we have Oh Wow Healing Guide, and then we have Oh Wow, This Changes Everything.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we make that correction on our website. Now, we can find these books on Amazon.com. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. And then also you have a website. So let's make sure we put this up here. And this is her website. And it's MELODYBROOKE.com. So those of you out there, you can write that down. Make sure you have it. Go to it. And I know that you're revamping. You have some new things that you're going to be doing too.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
Sometimes I think when tragedies happen, when things kind of shake us up like this COVID-19 did, it makes us really start evaluating things, understanding things. And but it also, when we can get through it and get to the other side, then we can also create and explore and embrace new surroundings, new ways of doing things. So, good for you for doing some new things they're going to help people, touch them, and change their lives. So that's wonderful.
I think we have to use this time. This is a gift, and we have to think of it as a gift, even though it's hard because, like most of us, I'm sequestered away from many of my loved ones. My daughters live a long ways from me. I'm not getting to see my grandchildren, and all of those things are difficult to manage. But I can also embrace the gift that's in there too, right? There's a gift in every experience we have. And the gift here is to take the opportunity. And even I'm doing this for myself, which is, I'm in my own therapy. I'm growing myself to exploring more of who I am in this time, because it is a time when I can do that. And at the same time, I'm developing these new ways for people to interact with me so that people who maybe don't have the resources or the time or whatever to be able to seek out the individual therapy can access my work and get more connected to me and be able to learn and open up these aspects, their ability to be more compassionate with themselves and in their relationships in a new way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you, because I think this time I've been doing the same thing, and a lot of I think self-development, being able to be creative, and really think out of the box, and it's kind of an exciting time, and I have been busier than I have ever been in my life.
Me too, actually.
Yeah, but I'm loving it. I truly am, and so, but I'm very fortunate to connect through the internet and have wonderful friends, with our listenership and those that are out there. So that also helps with that connection, that lack of connection. So, but yeah. Well, I think you're an awesome lady. I really, truly, you're a lovely, lovely person. You certainly help others. Again, our guest today is Melody Brooke. She's a therapist. She specializes in helping people develop real connection in their relationships. She's an author of these wonderful books called Oh Wow, Healing Guide, and then Oh Wow, This Changes Everything. We're going to have to close out the show, Melanie, but if you'd like to share a few last words, we'll give you the platform.
I just want to say that it takes courage to do and explore yourself, but you are so worth it. There is someone inside of you that is just waiting to explode into the world and show the world all that you have to offer. And the world actually, honestly, needs more of you, not less of you. So let's get in there and get more of you out.
Well, that's beautifully said, and I totally agree. I think we're on the right page to helping people and moving them forward into their hopefully their new life, their best life, and so that's a great place to be. Thank you again for being on the show. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, I tell you what, the time goes by very quickly, doesn't it? And I wanted to thank you guys for listening to us each and every week. We appreciate it. Thank you for listening to all the shows here on our Going Solo Network. You can find them again on goingsolonmedia.com or on our WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Facebook page or our YouTube channel. This show is Going Solo with Cece. I'm Cece Shatz, a Doyenne of Relationship Building, and you're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And I hope you'll listen to us next week. We'll see you at the same time, same place. Bye for now.